Welcome to the Thing About Salem. I'm Josh Hutchinson.
Hi, I'm Sarah Jack. Today we're talking about Mary Black, an enslaved woman who was accused of witchcraft in April 1692. Her story appears in the historical record only because she was accused, examined, imprisoned, and eventually cleared. But to understand Mary Black's experience, we first need to talk about the household she lived in because her owner was a Putnam, not the Putnams you're thinking of.
In the court documents, Mary Black is consistently identified using the colonial era term Negro. She's described as Mary, a Negro woman of Lieutenant Nathaniel Putnam's in the minimus. That's the jail receipt to show that she was transferred to jail. And Mary Black, a Negro, in the examination transcript. The historical record itself tells us she was a Black woman and enslaved.
When we hear Putnam in the Salem trials, we think of Thomas, Edward, and Putnam Jr. and Putnam Sr., but this household belonged to Nathaniel Putnam.
In December 1691, Nathaniel Putnam was the moderator of a town meeting who announced that Minister Samuel Parris's contract had been broken.
He said that Salem Village would stop paying Reverend Parris's salary and providing his firewood. But they didn't actually fire him from being minister. So Parris was halfway fired, still in the pulpit, but with no pay or support. This financial crisis hit the Parris household just weeks before the afflictions began in early 1692, and it shows Nathaniel Putnam had real political power and was actively opposing Parris before the witch trials started.
This destabilized the Samuel Parris household right before the afflictions began in his daughter Betty and his niece Abigail Williams.
Nathaniel Putnam comes up in the record prior to the witch trials. He had land disputes with the Francis Nurse farm, but it doesn't appear that he used the trials to settle scores.
On June 29, 1692, he signed a petition in defense of Rebecca Nurse. He was one of 8 Putnams to sign for her.
While Thomas and Edward Putnam were filing complaints, and Ann Putnam Sr. and Ann Putnam Jr. were among the afflicted accusers, Nathaniel and 7 other Putnams signed a petition defending Rebecca Nurse. The Putnam family wasn't united. They took opposing sides during the trials.
Mary was accused, indicted, jailed, questioned, and examined, but she was not tried or convicted. She survived the jail, which is a feat in itself given the conditions, and was eventually released. But because she didn't provide the court with a sensational story, her name often slips through the cracks of history.
She was accused of witchcraft on April 21st, and on April 22nd, she was examined before Judge Hathorne and Judge Corwin.
And there were 7 other people accused that day: William and Deliverance Hobbs, Mary Esty, Sarah Wilds, Edward and Sarah Bishop, and Mary English.
And the afflicted persons were Mary Walcott, Abigail Williams, Mercy Lewis, Ann Putnam Jr., Elizabeth Hubbard, and Susanna Sheldon. As we mentioned, we know a little bit about Mary because she is in the records. So now we're going to go through those few records that mention her to show what we know about her.
A transcript of this examination was recorded by Minister Samuel Parris. The opening questions that she faced from the judges began with, "Be you a witch?" To which Mary Black was silent. Then they asked, "How long have you been a witch?" "I cannot tell." Asked again how long she's been a witch. She replies, "I cannot tell you."
Then they ask her about harming people. "Why do you hurt these folks?" She replied, "I hurt nobody." "Who doth?" they asked her. "I do not know." This really makes you think because we're so familiar with Tituba's examination. And at that point, Tituba's answers became very different. Initially, Tituba said, "I don't hurt the girls," but the answers changed. But this was it for Mary.
There was some cryptic testimony during this examination. Her master, Nathaniel Putnam, said, "A man sat down upon the farm with her about a 12-month ago." "What did the man say to you?" "He said nothing."
Then she dealt with the spectral evidence. She was asked if she hurt the afflicted persons, and several said they had been hurt by her, and Mary denied it. They asked her to demonstrate pinning her neckcloth. She did that for them, and when that happened, several of the afflicted cried out that they were pricked.
The afflicted reported specific injuries. Mary Walcott said she was pricked in her arm until the blood came. Abigail Williams claimed to be pricked in the stomach, and Mercy Lewis said that she was pricked in the foot.
The judges committed her to jail.
On May 13, 1692, she was transferred from Salem jail to Boston jail, along with George Jacobs Sr., Giles Corey, William Hobbs, Edward and Sarah Bishop, and Bridget Bishop, Sarah Wilds, Mary English, Alice Parker, and Anne Putiater.
When we normally think of the experiences of those accused witches, are we recognizing that Mary Black was there too? Maybe we can do that now that we know her story.
In all, Mary was imprisoned for nearly 9 months. She was released from the Boston jail on January 3rd, 1693, to go to the jail in Salem for a trial.
On January 11th, 1693, she was cleared by proclamation at a Superior Court session held in Salem. So the court of Oyer and Terminer, that had been shut down. She had been left in jail through all the executions and the other trials. She had survived jail, and then she is proclaimed innocent by the Superior Court.
Let's set up some context to understand this situation better. Let's contrast Mary Black with Rebecca Nurse. Rebecca Nurse was a white woman of standing. She was accused alongside her sisters, Sarah Cloyce and Mary Esty. 39 people testified to Rebecca's Christian character. Nathaniel Putnam used political influence on her behalf. And Mary Black, there's no defenders on record of Mary Black.
She was imprisoned with many of the accused witches, including Mary Esty and Sarah Wilds, who were respectable married women, and Mary English, wife of a wealthy merchant. The bishops were landowners. The trials reached across all the social boundaries. But the white women appeared in deeds, church records, community documents throughout their lives. Mary Black appears in historical record only because she was accused of diabolical witchcraft.
Now, let's talk about the question of her release from jail. Once somebody was cleared of charges or acquitted, they still had to pay jail fees to be released from prison. And many of the accused could not pay this on their own. So some took out loans, some had others pay for them. But here we have the question, did Nathaniel Putnam pay for Mary Black's release? Did he advocate for her like he did for Rebecca Nurse? Or was her clearing just the result of a broader proclamation ending the trials? The documents don't shed any light on this.
We know that Nathaniel, her owner, defended Rebecca Nurse. And we know that Mary Black was in that household, but there are no petitions for her or testimonies in support of Mary Black. Did she face that 9 months alone? I wonder what that was like for the Nathaniel Putnam household.
Yeah.
That Mary was just over there, like time was just ticking away and she wasn't a part of the daily life. And all this stuff is going on with the village. And it makes me wonder too, like, how important was she even to them that she could sit over there that long? She just sat in the jail. I think it's interesting that she sat there that long, having not implicated anyone else.
Mary Black survived. She was cleared, but the silence around her survival, compared to documented support for others, speaks to stark racial hierarchies and precarious existence for women of color in 1692 Salem, even in households where the master had proven willing to stand against the court.
Her story raises questions we can't fully answer. I think the questions are really important, even though we cannot answer them, because it gets us thinking about her, others like her, and what that experience was and what it meant. We don't know if Nathaniel advocated for her. We don't know who paid her fees. We don't know what happened to her after her release. We do know that the same man who publicly defended Rebecca Nurse owned a slaved woman who faced the court alone, at least as far as we can see.
In our research of Mary Black, we found that there's some confusion between her and another woman named Black, who is referred to only as Goody Black, but was likely Faith Black of Topsfield, a sister-in-law of Sarah Cloyce. In the Salem Witchcraft Papers, which were published in 1977, the transcript of a deposition is misattributed to Mary Black, but more likely the reference to Goody Black means Faith Black, as she is accused of being in the company of Sarah Cloyce and her sister, Rebecca Nurse, which would make sense if she's the sister-in-law of Sarah Cloyce. However, the records of the Salem witch hunt note that the woman in the record is probably Faith. There's no definitive answer here to who Goody Black is, because that name only appears in one document in the records of the Salem witch hunt. But the lesson here is just to trust the records of the Salem witch hunt. It's a very good, reliable book, and highly encourage anybody to get their hands on a print version or the ebook version of Records of the Salem Witch Hunt.
And you can support us by purchasing that through bookshop.org/shop/endwitchhunts.